Kal Kadosh Boker Tov. We're going to continue with Daf Tetvav Amud Aleph 15a1. We are going to start. I'm going to share the screen right away because it's the first picture already. And it says over here like this. Okay, Itmar. It was stated, Lechi haomed me'elav. If you have a lechi which is standing on its own. So here, if you see the picture of the tree, this is what it means, omed me'elav. Omed me'elav means that it's standing on its own, which means this is the proper place of where it was. It wasn't like you put it there b'chavanah to be a lechi. It just happened to be you had your tree right at the beginning of the mavui, of the entrance, the throwaway. Okay? Now remember, the road here that looks like a road is always Reshut Rabim, public domain. This part is always considered, right? The paved area with pavers is always considered the mavui. And the grass, which you could see over here, behind the mezuzah, is considered Reshut Yachid. Okay? Just that way we should know. So Abaye comes and he says, Havi lechi, it is considered a lechi. Rava comes and he says, Lo havi lechi, it is not considered a lechi. Okay? So the Gemara is going to now say as follows. Okay? It says, Heicha de lo samchinan leme'etmol, in a place where they did not come and have it before the Shabbat. Kule alma lo plige, everyone agrees, whether it's according to Abaye or Rava, de lo havi lechi, that it's not going to be considered a kosher lechi. Ki plige, when is the machloke between Abaye and Rava? Which means that we were already somech on it yesterday, which means we had to actually, we were somech on this lechi, and therefore Abaye says it is considered a lechi, because we were somech on it already yesterday, right? It doesn't mean that, it means that they were megaleh dat, that they are going to use it or not use it. That's the kavanah. I mean, they revealed their mind that they wanted to use it or not use it. Rava says it's not considered a lechi, because since from the beginning, this lechi wasn't put there in order to fix the mavui, lo havi lechi, it's not considered a lechi. Okay? So katzal gadaita, so we thought to say, ki hech de plige belechi, just like the machloket is by a lechi, plige nami me mechitza. It's exact same machloket by a mechitza. So it means just like there's a machloket by lechi, would be the same halachot, the machloket by mechitzot. Remember mechitzot, we're talking about partitions, whether it is going to be for sukkah, or whether it's going to be a mechitza, or other things like that. So Tashema, we're going to bring a proof, and now we're going to go to the next picture. Yeah? I know, it's one afterwards. Okay? So the next one is right afterwards. It's a little bit further on. Okay? So it says over here like this. Right? Tashema, how says sukkato ben ha'ilanot. Imagine right now I'd make my sukkah in between different trees. Ve'ilanot defanot la. And the ilanot are considered my defanot, which means that the actual ilan, the tree in itself, is considered my, the ilan itself, the tree itself is going to be considered, right? The tree in itself is going to be considered the walls of my sukkah. So kishira, now obviously, you didn't put a tree there to be your wall. There was a tree there, and then what happens is that I'm making my sukkah, now I'm using it as my wall. So this is a proof that what? That it is considered a kosher wall, and therefore this is against Shitat Rava, this is accordance to Abaye. Just like Abaye said that a lechi haomed me'elav is considered kosher, even though it wasn't put there to be a lechi, but it was just happened to be there. So to here, this is a proof. If you make your sukkah, if there was trees around and I'm using the tree as my wall, it's going to be kosher. So says the Gemara, no, it's not a proof. Why? What are we dealing with? You planted it lechatchila to be your wall. And therefore, it's not a proof against Rava. It could be the opposite. It could be for Rava, and it's not a proof for Abaye. So says the Gemara, Yehachi Pshita, obviously. I'm saying if you came and you took trees and you planted them, that I want this tree to be my sukkah, my wall of the sukkah, obviously it's going to be kosher. So answers the Gemara, no. I would have thought to say, maybe you're going to start using the tree, and then what's going to happen is you're going to start plucking things off on Yom Tov, and then it's going to be a problem, obviously, because you're not allowed to use a tree on Shabbat and Yom Tov. Kamashmalanda, we do not make such a decree, and it's going to be kosher for your wall, and there's no problem. Okay? So that's just what the Gemara is saying until now. Now says the Gemara, the next one, and this is this picture over here, which you're going to see it over here. Okay? The truth is this one, I like it a little bit better. If you want to just see it over here, just for 1 second. It looks nicer. Okay? Tashema, we're going to bring a proof. Hayasham ilan o gader o chitzat kanim. Right? It says over here, if you had an ilan, So over here, I'm showing with my cursor, this is the tree, right? Then you had o gader, right? So on the other way, you had the gader, or you had the chitzat kanim. This is a chitzat kanim. So gader is the diomed here, which is like the pieces of, how do you call it? This is the brick. So here you have the ilan, one corner. You have this is the, how do you call it? The gader, the fence. And then you have the chitzat kanim. These are reeds that are sticking up, like it's a chitzim el kanim, right? In the middle. Okay, remember, this is the Reshut Rabim because this is the paved, this is the road area. In the middle of the Reshut Rabim, you have this area in order that you would be able to drink and give your animals to drink from this water in the middle, like the pit, right? The well in the middle. And this is the Mavui. Remember, all the paved area is considered Mavui. Okay? So says the Gemara, we're going to bring a proof. If you have the Ilan, o gader, o chitzat kanim, nidom mishum diomad, which means it's considered a diomad. Those are the words which are written up here. Diomad. Okay, what does that mean exactly? It's mitzaref to be able to draw forth the water from the pit and give it to the animals. Now, usually, anilan gader v'chitzat kanim were not put there lechatchila for that. Still, it's kosher to use it. Meaning, this tree was not planted there to be part of the wall. Neither was the chitzat kanim. Neither was the maybe the other two, yes, but not the ilan and not the chitzat kanim. So this is a proof again, according to Abaye against Rava. Because here you see that it's kosher as being used as a mechitza, and it's going to be okay. So says the Gemara, no. What are we dealing with? You also did it lechatchila for that. Meaning when you went and you planted a tree there lechatchila in order to use it for that. So says the Gemara, my question on the same question. If so, then what's a chidush? Saying obviously, if you came and you planted a tree, and that's going to be used as my mechitza, so that's my mechitza. So what's the chidush? So answers the Gemara, Kamashmalan comes to teach you, chitzat kanim. The only chidush is not the tree. The chidush is the chitzat kanim, which is over here, the chitzat kanim. Over there, chitzat kanim. Right, that's the only chidush. He says, why? He says, kane pachom mishoshat tfachim. Because what happened is that you put the kanim, and they weren't so close together, but rather they were close like the dins of levud. If you guys remember, there was actually a machloket where the levud was 3 or 4, but they usually, halakha l'maaseh, anyway, we pass in 3. So if you have something within 3 tfachim of each other, they're all connected. Remember, 3 tfachim is 24 centimeters. So if you have something within 24 centimeters space of each other, it's all one block, even though they're actually separate. So he's saying over here, each kaneh was separate. They were within, though, the 3 tfachim, okay? And then he says over here, just like Abaye comes and he says from Rabba, okay? That means basically what we're trying to say here is that Abaye is from Rabba, that the chitzat kanim is talking about, he says over here, so therefore he's trying to say, just like we found that Abaye asked Rabba later on, if such a mechitza is kosher to be considered the diomed or no, which is again this square, okay? Or is that considered kosher or not? Rabba over there answered, the chitzat kinim, okay, and the Braita was talking about such a case where it's kosher. So therefore the chidush is, do not bring me a proof that this mechitza is kosher if it wasn't done like that from the beginning, because at the end of the day, it was done like that from the beginning, and therefore it's not a proof to Abaye, okay? Binyamin, we just started a few minutes ago, so we're just a few lines down, okay? We're by Tashema, Ilana Mesach.
Okay, thanks.
Fine. So says the Gemara, the next one is okay, so I'm going to stop the sharing. Okay, Tashema. Okay, we're going to try to bring a proof. Ilana mesech ala aretz. If you have an ilan, which is very, very big, and therefore what happens is it's starting to put it's starting to spread out. It's anafim, right, on the land. Im en nofo gavo min haaretz shoshat tfachim. If the nof, which is basically the edges of the branches, if they're not going to be within the 3 tfachim from the ground, metaltalim mitachtav. Why? Because then the anafim are considered like a mechitza, and then you're allowed to actually carry underneath it. So you see from here that anfei ha'ilan, the branches of a tree, are considered mechitzot gemurot. Again, I don't know why we don't have a picture. This one has a picture. Yeah, on the one that I show you online, we don't have a picture. Here you have a picture though. Over here. You see, here's a tree, and it's going downwards in. So here you have a whole bunch of measurements. They're very small. So I'll tell it to you in a few seconds. Okay, so you see here it says less than 3 tfachim. So if this is going to be less than 3 tfachim from the ground, you're allowed to carry underneath it. Why? Because then it's considered like a mechitza. Okay? So this one we have the picture. Fine. So says the Gemara, okay, what are we talking about? Remember, every single time we're bringing a machloke between Abaye and Rava, Abaye says, Lechia omed me'elav, something that was placed on its own, it's considered kosher. Rava says it's not considered kosher. So we keep on trying to bring proofs against Rava that if it was done on its own, it is kosher. This is another proof that it's kosher, even though it was done on its own. And says the Gemara, no, you planted it that way. You planted the tree this way in order to be able to carry from within it. So it's not a proof against Rava anymore. So says the Gemara, if so, so then you should be able to be mitaltel throughout the entire area underneath the tree. Right? Why are you telling me now, why did Ravuna bar Yeshua say that you could only carry underneath it the size of Bet Satayim, which it says here 5,000 square amot, which that in itself is huge. מקום שיש בו 4 טפחים, 4 טפחים, ממקום לחיצות כשרות, ורשות היחיד הורייתא, אפילו מחצון רשות גרועות. חכמים הביאו אותו ממקום שם מתוקן קוצקו, ואמרו שמצד דווקא אם יש בו שחירות. If it has to have until Bet Satayim. Okay, if it doesn't have the Bet Satayim, then it's not going to be good. Okay, that's what it is. Let's see if you have any picture here. No, that's already the next one. Okay, so basically what he's trying to say is like this. In that picture you had, and that's what he's going to try to say over here. It says, what are we dealing with? He says over here as follows. He says, if you're going to tell me that he planted it like that, lechatechila, to become like a mechitza, and therefore to be the people should actually live or dwell underneath those branches. So he says, so then 1 second, if it's going to be makom ukaf ledira, which means that it was done so lechatechila, and it's not, so then it's not different than any other type of a courtyard. So it's not different to any type of a courtyard. Why is it that they said that, no, are you allowed to be metaltel underneath? Not metaltel, how much space do you need to have? You need to have a bet satayim. Why? It should always be permitted. So answers the Gemara, no. Because it's going to be a dira, which is only going to be open in open airspace, right? Which is basically that's what he's saying over here. It's not made to use inside of it, but rather for the outside of it, which means the shomrim, the ones which are guarding the area, they don't live inside of it, right? But rather what happens is they have to be on the outside. They have to actually guard the outside area. So therefore, because of that, right, they just need it for shade, but it's not actually that they're using it inside. Anything which is going to be for the avid on the outside, it's not considered hakafat dira. It's not considered like a house. And therefore, unless you're going to have, if it has more than bet satayim, then you're allowed to carry right within it. But if not, then you're not allowed to carry within it. Okay? Fine. So then that's what he's trying to answer up, that even if it was going to be built, or not built, planted, especially just for this, still it's going to be the chidush that you're not allowed to carry in the entire vicinity until you have a bet satayim because of this, because it was only being used for the external, not for the internal. Okay? Next. Tashima, we're going to try to bring another proof. Shavat betel. No, this is the next one. Of Negader. So Shavat betel shehu gavo asara. Right? What happens right now if you were going to be, right? You did shvita in a place, in a mount, right? Which is 10 tfachim tall. Vehu me'arba amot va'bet satayim. And it's the length, or it's the measurement of 4 amot until bet satayim. Vechen beneka. Or in a neka. Neka is like the places in between stones. She'uamok asarat tfachim, which is depth of 10 tfachim. Vehu me'arba amot va'bet satayim. And it's going to be 4 amot until bet satayim. Kama ketzura v'shibole makifot oto. Now, you do all, or also in other cases, is that if you're inside of the different types of grains, right? I don't know why we don't have pictures for all these things, but what can we do? No. Okay? So in all these cases, it says over here, you're allowed to actually go throughout the entire area, and also outside of it for 2,000 amot, which is the Tchum Shabbat. Okay, why? Because if you're doing that, every single place is considered as 4 amot, and therefore you have 2,000 amot each direction. So wherever you are in that vicinity, you go to the end, and now I have 2,000 amot that direction. Go to that end, 2,000 amot that direction. You continue going. Okay? So therefore, you see from here, this was done on its own. I didn't put the mount there. It was just like a heap or whatever it is. Or I didn't come and I didn't make the stones there. Or I didn't put it there purposely. So this is a proof to Abaye and against Rava. And so the Gemara, now if you're going to tell me, because every single time, what do we keep on answering it? You did it lechatchila like that. So therefore, it's not a proof against Rava. It's actually with Rava. So he says, now if you're going to tell me you did it like that from the beginning, bishlama kama, I could say that you put the grains there, lechaye. Then okay, fine. You could actually do it there, fine. Elatel vaneka, what are you going to say about the stones and about the heap? Right? What? You put it there lechatchila? They're not made. They're not human made. They're made from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So what does that mean? Okay? Ela, but rather b'mechitzot kulam lo pli gida v'mechitza. Right? So rather, basically, what we're trying to say is by mechitzot, everybody agrees that it's considered a mechitza. Whether according to Abaye or Rava, by mechitzot, even Rava agrees that it's okay. One is a machloket only by the lechi, and that was the machloket that we had. Abaye goes according to his reasoning, but he says lechi is mishum mechitza. So if we're just like mechitza is good if it's not on its own, and the lechi is because of mechitza, so it's also good because of its own, right? Mechitza is shia me'alea v'mechitza. Rava goes according to his reasoning that he says no, lechi is mishum heker. It's because of recognition, because of being recognizable to the eye, that you know that it's something different. If you made it with your own hands, it's going to be a good recognition. If not, it's not going to be a good recognition. Okay? Until here, everyone's clear? Fine. Next. Tashema. This is the picture now. Okay? Tashema. Right? It says over here. Avne gader yotzeh min hagader. Muvdalot zo mizu pachot mishosha en tzarich lechi acher. Shosha tzarich lechi acher. Which means like this. When you have the avanim, the avne gader, the stones of the gader, you have the entrance, and the avanim are coming and they're going one above the another, but they're not straight. You remember it was the crooked, right? It was going like this. So now what happens? If they're separated from each other 3 tfachim, which means that you have a 3 tfachim distance from the top, from one to another, it's too small. Here. Right? From one to another, there's going to be a distance of 3 tfachim. Here you have it with my cursor. This is a 3 tfachim. So then in such a case, you need a lechi acher. You need another type of lechi. It's going to be less than, if it's going to be less, you don't need another lechi. If it's going to be more, you need another lechi. So again, well, from this bright we're trying to say that it's going to be considered a lechi, and this is like Abaye. Why? Right? It wasn't placed like that lechatchila. Obviously something broke or something happened that they didn't finish off the good job, and therefore it just stayed like that. So it wasn't that you lechatchila made it like that. So there's a proof like Abaye against Rava. And so the Gemara, I guess it was the modern or something, it was fashion in those days, that no, you did it lechatchila like that. So it's not a proof like Abaye, but rather it could also be going to Rava. So says the Gemara, Yachi Pshita, obviously, saying if you did it like that lechatchila, obviously you don't need another lechi and it's going to be okay. So says the Gemara, Maudatem, I would have thought to say Lemeisa Binyanahu Davida, that you were making these. Okay, 1 second. Hold on 1 second. So again, one more time, it says, Maudatem, I would have thought to say Lemeisa Binyanahu Davida, which means that these are made in such a way to be mechaber, the geder minyan acher, which means you're doing it purposely in order to connect to something else. And therefore, since you're making it to connect to another building, it's not considered a lechi. Kamash Malan comes to teach you that we don't actually say that. Okay, we don't say that, and therefore it's going to be kosher. Okay, Tashema we learned in the Braita. The Tani Rebechia that we learned in the Braita of Rebechia, Kotel Shetzido Echad Kanus Mechavero. Men Sheniyim B'chutz V'Shavem Miftim, Men Sheniyim Miftim V'Shavem B'chutz, Nidom Shum Lechi. So again, here we don't have a picture in this one. Let me see in this one. Do you have a picture? Where you have a wall that one side is a little bit more short than the other side. So it doesn't matter whether then you're going to see that the lechi is seen on the outside or lechi is seen on the inside. You remember the cases where you had the wall and a little bit the wall was inside. So therefore you had the lechi here, which was seen on the outside, but not on the inside, or the opposite, that on the inside it was more inside. So you see the lechi on the inside, but not from the outside. So in those 2 cases, we said that it is considered a lechi. Now, obviously it wasn't done like that lechatechila to be a lechi. So therefore, right, this is a proof again according to Abaye, that even though it wasn't done like that lechatechila, it's still going to be okay. Says the Gemara, no, you did do it like that lechatechila, you made it like that. So says the Gemara, my question, so what's it coming to teach you? Obviously, if you made it to be like that, so then it's going to be kosher. Hakamash comes to teach you that even though you could see it on the outside, but on the inside it's flushed, so therefore you can't see it, it's still going to be considered a lechi. Okay? Tashema. Next case. Okay, it says over here like this. The Rav Havayati Ba'hu Mevuah, Havayati Rav was sitting in a mavui, okay, and on Shabbat, and Rav Huna, which was his student, was sitting in front of him as well. Amar le Shamen, so he went and he told the Shamash, Zil aiti lekuza de maya, go bring me a cut of water, a jug of water. Ad de'ata nafel lechia. Until he came back, the lechi fell down. Right? That means they put a lechi, remember the lechi is a side post, they put it on the wall and it fell down. So so he went, right? Rav showed the Shamash with his hand that now that he has to stop carrying the water. Why? There's no more lechi. So kama duchte, he stopped and he didn't carry it anymore. So Amar le Ravuna says, Lo savelamor leha, lo savelomor lismocha dikla. He says what? I can't be somech on a dekel? Which is on the tzidor shel hakotel rosh at the beginning, which means why can't you use a palm tree? The palm tree should also be good as a lechi. So Amar, he went and he said, Dami haime rabbanan keman de lo parshe in sheshmata. This Tamil Chacham is like a person that he's never explained the sugyot in his life. What does that mean? Even so pashut, right? He doesn't know. Mi samchino alem etmo. Were we somech on it yesterday? So he says, Tama de lo samchinan. The only reason why you cannot use it was because you weren't being somech on it yesterday. Hasamchinan. But if you were somech on it yesterday, havilechi, it is a good lechi. So this is a proof to Abaye. Why? Because the only reason why it's not kosher is only because I didn't have in my mind that I was going to use it. Meaning there was a tree there, but it wasn't. Well, we were never going to use a tree. We were going to use a lechi. But if I did have in mind that I was going to use a tree, then it would have been okay. So says the Gemara, so why don't we just say the machloket between Abaye and Rava is that if you're not going to be somech on it, and that's the machloket on it or not. But if they were going to be somech on it, it's a lechi according to everybody. So says the Gemara, no. We cannot make the machloka between Abaye and Rava only in a case where they weren't somech on it. Why? Because he says like this. He says, why? Hahu barka. Because there was a barka, they have a bebar chavu, that was like a mirpeset, right, by the house of Bar Chavu. It was like a mirpeset coming out of the house of, and it was lower down of the Amud. There's no pictures here anymore. Yeah, there's a picture here. So what, there's no picture here? So, yeah. No, there's no picture here. Okay. So I'm gonna show you from here. I'll show you. It says over here, it's this picture right here. You see over here? Use the pillars, the columns going down, and it's out. This is the house. Everyone sees it? Yeah? Okay. So he says over here like this. Sahu, right? Sahu bar kadav Bei bar chavu. That they were always, all their lifetimes, they were arguing about this. That Abaye said that it was going to be the Amud, which was a pillar which is going down, is going to be kosher lechi. And Rava said it's going to be pasul. It's not going to be good. Because according to Rava, they were only there in order to support the top. They weren't there because b'chavana you put it there. So therefore, according to Rava, it's going to be pasul. According to Abaye, it was going to be kosher. So this is also a proof that you see from here that according to Shitat Abaye, any type of lechi, even though it was there on its own or for another reason, it wasn't even there for the proper reason, it's always going to be kosher. Okay? Next, Mishnah. Bakol osin lechayayin. You can make the lechi, the lechayayin, the lechis, from anything that you want. Even from an animal. Okay? You're allowed to do it. Rabbi Meir says you're not allowed to use an animal, right, or any living thing in order to become a lechi. Now, something like this, which is a living creature, is going to be mitameh mishum golal, which means if you made it a michseh, a cover to the kever, it's going to be mitameh other people b'magau ve'ohel, right, with touching it or with the ohel. Okay, tedvav amubet. Rabbi Meir metaher. However, the Rabbi Meir is going to be metaher to be mitameh other things. Anything which is alive, still you're allowed to write a get on top of it. So you could write a get on top of an animal. Rabbi Yosef Galilei says, no, it's pasul. You're not allowed to write a get on top of it. Okay? Tanya, we learned to the right. Rabbi Meir says, anything which has living, a life in it, אין עושים אותו לא דופן לסוכה ולא לחי עם אבוי ולא פסים לביראות ולא גולל לקבר. So according to Shitat Rabbanid, anything which is alive, which is living creature, you're not allowed to make for it a wall of a sukkah, a lechi, the side post of the mavui, the pasin, right, which are around the biraot. Remember, this is the pasin for the biraot, what we mentioned to do with the water in the middle, right? And then those pasin, you're not allowed to do it around. Golel kever, you're not allowed to make a cover for a kever. And all these things, you're not allowed to do it, okay? And if you did do it, it's still going to be kosher. It's going to be tahor. In the name of Rabbi Yosef Galilei, they said, so you're also not allowed to write a get on top of a living creature as well. So my tama, Rabbi Yosef Galilei, what's the reasoning of Rabbi Yosef Galilei? Why did it say you're not allowed to write a get on top of an animal? The Tanya was going to write a sefer keritum netam yada. Only a sefer, that's only a sefer that you could write her. That means the get has to be like a sefer. How do I know that I don't need a sefer? How do I know that I could use anything else? Right? What does that mean? Anything that you want to write it on. If so, so why do you write sefer then? You're telling me v'katavla, you can write it on anything. But then you're telling me, right, v'katav, what's going on? You must sefer, just like sefer is not living anymore, ve'eno ochel, and it's not a food. Of course, so too, it could be anything except for the it cannot be food or it cannot be a living creature. Okay, v'rabbanan. And according to the rabbis, that they say that you are allowed to have it on an animal, what are they going to say? So he says, Mikati bas sefer, is it written Katav la bas sefer on the sefer? Sefer ktiv, it's written sefer kritut. Lisfirut devarim be'alma hu de'ata. It's sifrut. Sifrut is like we're anim saper, right? Right? I'm just telling you over. I mean, like sipur itzemi time. I'm not doing it. It has to be on the sefer. It just has to be like a sipur dvarim. So therefore, it could be on something which has ruach hayim. There's no problem. So says the Gemara, v'rabbanan hay v'katav. What do the rabbis do with v'katavla? What do the rabbis do with that? With v'katavla? So he says, he needs a bichtiva mitkareshet. Right? He says, because he needs it for the fact that it has to be bichtiva mitkareshet, which only with writing is a person divorced. But not with money. Why? Salka daita chamina, I would have thought to say in the beginning, like a havamina, since there's a kesh, a juxtaposition, right? The proximity between the going out and coming back. Okay? So therefore, I would have thought to say, because it says, she went out of the house and then she went to get married to somebody else. So since Yitzia is like halicha, which means, it's just like when you get married, you could get married with money. So to Yitzia bekesef, you get divorced with money. Meaning, why do you have to start writing a get? It's very complicated. Give her a few dollars and get rid of her. I just, that's it. So he says, according to the rabbis, it has to be something written down. According to Rabbi Yosef Galilei, how does he know the svara that we're not going to say this juxtaposition, that it cannot be done with money? So he says, Nafkale, he says in Sefer Kritut, Sefer Kortav, and he doesn't learn it from the Bekatavla, that you're making a juxtaposition. He learns it from the Sefer Kritut, meaning the first one was, he learned it from Sefer, that it has to be a Sefer and not ochel, not food or not something living. Now he's telling you Sefer Kritut, the Sefer is correct. Only through the book or through the whatever it is that you're going to give it to her, that's going to cut off to be correct, like karet, cutting off, right? It's going to be correct. Nothing else does it. But according to the rabbis, what do they do with this pasuk Sefer Kritut? So he says, Sefer Kritut, they needed something which is going to cut off between him and her completely, meaning forever, that there's no connection anymore, there's no bond between them. As we learned in the Braita, imagine a guy comes and he says, you know what? He wants to get back at his wife. What does he tell her? This is the get on condition that she never drinks wine for the rest of her life. On condition that she never visits her father for the rest of her parents for the rest of her life. It says enze kritut. It's not kritut. Why? Because since she's still tied down to him in a certain form, because it was only going to be a get in the fact that she's not going to fulfill something, so therefore it's not considered a get. However, though, if she said kol shoshim yom, if she only said until 30 days, it is a kritut. Why? Because at the end of the day, it's going to be cut off. So even though it was for a month, but since at the end of the month it's going to be cut off completely from him, so therefore it's going to be a good get. Rabbi Yosef Galilei, and according to Rabbi Yosef Galilei, how does he learn this from? Nafkale mikaret kritut. He learns it from the fact that the Torah said sefer kritut. It could have just said sefer karet. Why did it say sefer kritut? So he says, from the fact that it added extra, and it says sefer kritut instead of sefer karet, that teaches you the extra that it has to cut off completely the bond between the husband and the wife. But Rabbanan, and according to the rabbis, karet kritut, they didn't say, wow, the karet, kritut, it's all the same thing, karet, right? You added an extra few letters or you made it. It's the same thing. So the rabbis didn't want to learn it that way. It says the next Mishnah. Shayara shechanta bebika. Imagine right now you have a shayara, which is usually a caravans, which they came and they camped in a bika, in a place of fields or in a valley. Now what happened was they put around them all the different utensils of the animals. Okay, here you have the picture here, no? It's over here, I think it is, no? Let's see here if we have the picture. This is to do with the animal being used, the horse being used as a lechi. No, this is Tetvav Bet. No. So this one doesn't have a picture. Okay, this one has a picture. Let me see again.
Yeah, that's a shayara.
Yeah, this is, look. Chaval that both of them don't have the, each one has the good and the bad. This one, its pictures are too small, but at least it has the pictures. You see here, there you've got the person in the middle and you have all the utensils of the animal, right, surrounding him over here. Okay? So it says right? For example, like the saddles and all those different things. You're allowed to carry within that area on Shabbat. As long as the gader is going to be 10 tvachim tall, okay, so you need 80 centimeters height. You cannot have open space more than the built space, okay? Which means that sachakol, you don't have more of the empty space more than the space which actually has like a mechitza, okay? Kol pirza she'i ke'eser amot muteret, ibnei she'i kepetach. Any pirza, any breach, which is like going to be until 10 amot or less, is going to be permitted because then it's considered like an entrance. Remember, if it's more than 10 amot, we said you needed surat petach, or there's a machloket that surat petach even help or not. Yater mikan, if it's going to be more than 10 amot, asur, you're not allowed to carry whatsoever. Okay, says the Gemara, Itmar was stated. Parutz ke'omed. What happens if you have exactly half-half? I mean, you're going to measure, you're going to have half empty space and half a wall, or like, how do you call it? Like a wall, or as if to say it's going to be a wall. So Rav Papa says it's going to be mutar. Rav Huna ben Yeshua says it's going to be asur. Rav Papa says it's mutar. Hachi agmene rachmana leMoshe, but that's what the halacha leMoshe Sinai taught him, right? Loti frotz rubai. You cannot have the majority, which is going to be parutz, which is going to be open, breached. Rav Huna ben Yeshua amar asur. He says no. Hachi agmene rachmana. The halacha leMoshe Sinai was different. Kedor rubai. You have to put the majority. Meaning, what are you focusing on? That the majority is going to be walled, or that the majority is not going to be parutz. So basically on the negative or the positive. So if you're going to tell me the walled, so the majority has to be walled. If you're going to tell me that it cannot be breached, so the majority cannot be breached. So in each one, that's a machloket. So therefore, it's a 50-50. You have a machloket between Rav Papa and Rav Huna ben Yeshua. So now we learned in a Mishnah. We said in the Mishnah, you cannot have more parutz more than the binyan. You cannot have more empty space more than the built space. If it's going to be exactly half-half, mutar, it's going to be permitted. So therefore, this is a proof to which shita, the one that says Rav Papa. This is a proof to Rav Papa that it's going to be permitted. So says the Gemara, no, lo teima ha-kabinyan mutar. Do not say like the binyan is going to be mutar. Elaima, but rather you have to say, im binyan yater ala pirza mutar. If there's going to be more binyan than pirza, meaning more built than empty, then it's going to be mutar. So it's not a proof to Rav Papa. Aval kabinyan, but if it's going to be kabinyan, what's halacha? This is going to be asur. So then this is like the second shita, which was Rav Huna ben Yeshua. So Yachi, so litzni shelo prutzot kabinyan. Why don't we just say that it shouldn't be prutzot kabinyan? So kasha, that bemet is a question, because the Mishnah should have said that. Meaning, if that was bemet halacha, it should have said shelo yu prutzot kabinyan. It should not be parutz like the binyan. The fact that it didn't say it is actually a good question against Rav Huna ben Yeshua, and it is a proof like Rav Papa. Tashema, another proof. Now this we do have a picture here. I'm going to show it to you. Ham kare sukato bashipudin o barukot amita. If you right now come and you are going to put your sukkah with shipudim or with arukot amita. Okay, so these are the arukot amita. If you could see on my cursor. Okay, these are the arukot amita. Yeah, these are the arukot amita. Okay, over here, arukot amita, and right, these are the shipudim and the arukot amita. So what happens is, what do we say? If you have the same revach between them. So this is a kosher schach, where my cursor is. So this kosher schach, right? If the kosher schach is over here, if it's the same amount as the one which is the non-kosher, which is the rukot amita, or the shipudim, whichever one that it is, okay, in such a case, what's going to happen? So he says, it's going to be kosher. So you see from here, if it's exact same amount, it's still going to be kosher. So this is a proof like Abaye. Because again, according to Shitat Abaye, right, not Abaye, sorry, Rav Papa, right? What did Rav Papa say? Rav Papa said, half is kosher. Here it's half. Because we said as long as you have the same space in between, which was the kosher schach, with the non-kosher schach. So says the Gemara, it's not a proof. Why? What are we dealing with? Keshenichnas v'yotze, which means when the shipud or the arukot amita were going in, the space in between each shipud and shipud was a little bit more than the space in between the shipud itself, right? That you could actually take it in and out easier. So therefore, since it was a little bit more, it comes out that if you filled it up with schach kasher, there's more schach kasher than the pasul, right? So therefore, there is a little bit more kasher. It's not exactly half. You have more because the way that you did it was in a way that you had a little bit of space in between, and therefore it was going to be kosher. So says the Gemara, he says, what? Are you able to do it exactly? That you know exactly the spaces in between, and then you're going to know exactly you have one little bit more? How do you do that? So Rabbi Yami, he says, Rabbi Yami, madif. He says, no, you're marbe berevach me'at yoter. You would put a little bit more, and therefore you already know that it was going to be kosher. Here we don't have a picture, because that picture is already the next one. Here it is. This is the ma'adif. This is the ma'adif. You have more of the kosher than non-kosher. Look. Sorry. I don't know if you guys could see it. This one. Everyone sees it?
Yes.
Yes? That's ma'adif. You're having more. Okay? So your ma'adif marbe berevach me'at yoter mishur rochav hashibud, and therefore, right, that's the kavanah of nichnas yotzer. Rava says another answer. Imayun netunim sheti ve'erev. Imayun netunim erev notno sheti. Sheti notno erev. So this is picture. Now you have a good picture. Rava says imayun netunim. Look, this is how do you call it? Horizontal, vertical, no? So this is the vertical. Now you're putting it horizontal. If this was sheti, you're putting it now the other way around. Okay, that's what you're trying to do. So now by doing it in such a way, right, and you're putting the schach kasher in such a way, it comes out that you're actually going to be maleh the halal between them. In such a case, it's going to be more kosher than pasul. Because even though the revach between the shipudim are exact the same in between each one of these shipudim, still, right, the schach pasul is going to be batel for the schach which is kosher. Okay, fine. So says the Gemara, this is already the next stuff. Okay, so says the Gemara, Tashima, we're going to try to bring another proof. Let's bring our Mishnah. When you had the Shayra, the caravans that they went and they put themselves in the valley, Vikifua, big Malim, Ukafot, you put them around them with Gimalin, with Ukafot, right? Tzayna Mudalef, 1681, Bavitin. These are the karim, the pillows that they use on the top of the camels, Bishlifin, which are Chavilo, Bekarim Kolachot. Again, these are talking about different types of vegetables. Klachim, a kelach, a cluster of vegetables. You are allowed to use. You're not allowed to have between one camel and another camel, right? Like a full camel. Or between one ukaf, one saddle, and another saddle, like another saddle. And between one avit and another avit, right? A full avit. So in such a case, it comes out that this is a proof to Ravuna ber Yeshua. Why? Because if it's exactly the same, it's going to be, right? That's what we said. Parutz Kelmed, it's going to be pasul. So this is a proof to Ravuna ber Yeshua, and not like Rav Papa. And so the Gemara, the exact same thing. It's nichnas yotze, which means that the distance in between them is that it's enough in order to take it out easily, and therefore it comes out the parutz is actually more than the omed. You have more breached area because if you're able to take it out so easily, it means that it wasn't stuck so close together. So therefore, it's actually going to be more parutz more than omed, and therefore it's going to be a problem. Okay, Bezat Hashem, we continue tomorrow.